Roughly 17,000 people around the world stopped watching motorsports entirely on Saturday, August 15, 2026, and instead stared at a small airplane icon crawling across a live map. The jet carried the tail number N501KL, and for nearly 2 hours it was the single most tracked flight on the planet. Knoxville Raceway even threw the live tracker up on its giant video board so the grandstands could follow along instead of watching cars. Inside that jet was a driver who had climbed out of a NASCAR Cup Series car just 40 minutes earlier. He wasn't racing another driver. He was racing a clock. That driver was Kyle Larson. 2 racetracks were running almost the same night, separated by more than 1,000 miles. At Richmond Raceway in Virginia, the NASCAR Cup Series ran the Cookout 400 on the 3/4-mile short track. Larson drives the number 5 Hendrick Motorsports Chevrolet, and that contract pays the bills. But at Knoxville Raceway in Iowa, on a half-mile dirt oval, the 65th Knoxville Nationals was scheduled for the very same night, a 50-lap sprint car race worth $200,000 to the winner. Racers call it the granddaddy of them all, the biggest sprint car event on Earth. Larson is 34 years old, hails from Elk Grove, California, and is the reigning back-to-back NASCAR Cup Series champion. He already had the best starting spot at Knoxville locked up, and almost nobody in the sport believed he'd actually get to use it. On Thursday night, driving the Paul Silva Motorsports number 57, Larson charged past Garrett Williamson late in his qualifying feature to win it, which made him the week's high-point driver and handed him the pole for Saturday's championship feature. There was already a backup plan on paper. A crew member named Trevor Canales would climb into the sprint car, take the green flag from the pole, and immediately pit the car, a maneuver racers call start and park. The car still collects a payout, but runs 0 competitive laps. It wasn't even a new trick at Knoxville. Canales had done the exact same thing for Rico Abreu back in 2015 when NASCAR duties kept Abreu away. The reasoning behind all of it was simple: money. Larson had stayed in Iowa after the previous Sunday's NASCAR race and won the Capitani Classic at Knoxville that night for $13,000. On Monday, he won the Front Row Challenge at Southern Iowa Speedway for another $21,000. Thursday's preliminary win paid $12,000, and the planned start and park would have added $15,000 more. Owner Paul Silva runs his sprint car operation part-time, at roughly a quarter of a full-time team schedule. Not everyone was on board with the arrangement. About half the crowd booed Larson on Thursday night, with fans arguing he'd taken a starting spot from someone who actually planned to race Saturday. Larson addressed it directly during the week, but as long as the rule is the way it is right now, I mean, we're going to be here racing. Why wouldn't anybody? If they want to change the rule, that's totally fine. 2 veteran sprint car reporters backed him up. TJ Buffenbarger of TJSlideways.com pointed out that Silva makes his living owning the number 57, and Jeremy Elliott of SprintCarUnlimited.com called the idea that Larson was stealing someone's spot a nothing burger, saying the simple answer for every other competitor was to just beat him. Larson woke up Saturday to a forecast showing heavy rain heading for Iowa, and he was thrilled about it. He checked the weather app every 30 minutes, and for a while the outlook kept improving. Then the sun came out over Knoxville and the numbers fell apart. When I got in the Cup car, it only showed like a 10% chance of rain at 6 p.m. or something. I was like, all right, that's a bummer. I was kind of sad for a minute and then just got focused on the Cup race, Larson said. He insisted he'd already made peace with missing the sprint car race earlier in the week. It doesn't kill me. I haven't lost sleep over it, since knowing the schedule probably about a year now. He had reason to be cautious about hoping. Larson has twice attempted the Indianapolis 500/Coca-Cola 600 double in one day, and weather wrecked both attempts. Both of those attempts ended the same disappointing way, rained out before he could complete the full double, so by his own admission he'd learned the hard way not to get his hopes up too early on a night like this one. This time, the weather did the opposite. Larson qualified 30th at Richmond on Friday, and the Cookout 400 started exactly the way that spot suggested. He fell a full lap down early and finished the first stage in 25th. Then crew chief Cliff Daniels made the call that changed the entire night. Near the end of the second stage, he pitted the number 5 for 4 fresh tires, betting Larson could run down leader Joey Logano and earn the free pass back onto the lead lap. It worked. Larson climbed to 13th by the end of the stage and got his lap back. Daniels called it afterward, certainly the pivotal moment of the night. The stakes were real beyond that one race. 2, Larson had finished outside the top 30 in 4 of his previous 5 starts and had slid to 10th in the championship standings, with his last top 10 finish coming all the way back on June 28 at Sonoma. Only 2 races remained before the playoffs, which meant every position Larson gained or lost at Richmond carried real weight for his championship defense, on top of everything riding on it in Iowa. While the Cookout 400 played out in Virginia, steady rain was actually falling on Knoxville. Hot laps hadn't even started, and the program got pushed back 4 hours and 6 minutes past its scheduled 6:30 p.m. Central start, with cars not returning to the track until 10:36 p.m. Behind the scenes, a plan was quietly coming together. Daniels, Hendrick Motorsports president Jeff Andrews, and Larson's PR rep Colby Gorich worked the logistics in real time, and a chartered jet was placed on standby. "I'd much rather have a plan in place that we can say no to, or if they get the feature in, so be it, than to have nothing prepared," Daniels explained. Larson, for his part, kept saying no. "He kept telling me no. He kept telling Jeff Andrews no, but we were persistent because we knew that if we get him there, he can probably do something special," Daniels said. With 114 laps remaining at Richmond and Larson running 14th, Daniels finally keyed the radio. "Knoxville has not ever started hot laps yet. Big delay for the race. Don't know if it's tomorrow yet, but they're way behind, just so you know." Larson's reply was one stunned word: Knoxville. Daniels confirmed, "Yeah, we're working on a plan for you." "Okay," Larson answered. He admitted he'd been thinking about Iowa all night during the long cautions but had refused to bring it up over the radio himself. "I never wanted to key up and ask, because that's just a bad look, and I didn't want it to come across like I wasn't focused on the race at all," he said. Once he knew Iowa was actually possible, something shifted. Larson called it getting a kickstart of emotion. The number 5 car improved from there, climbing into the top 10 late and bringing it home 6th, his first top 10 finish since Sonoma, and enough to lift him back up the standings with 2 races left before the playoffs. Daniels was proud afterward. "He stayed with it all night. So very proud of our team. He's got a little pep in his step now." The team had already prepared everything. Larson skipped his post-race media obligations the moment the checkered flag flew, and food and hydration were already loaded onto the waiting jet. "Oh, this is real," Larson said, describing the moment the trip actually became happening. The checkered flag fell at Richmond around 10:16 p.m. Eastern. Larson parked on pit road, climbed out of the car, and sprinted to a waiting vehicle that rushed him to Richmond International Airport. The jet, tail number N501KL, was wheels up at 10:57 p.m. Eastern, just 40 minutes after the checkered flag. The flight to Pella Municipal Airport in Iowa took 118 minutes, touching down at 12:55 a.m. Central. Somewhere over the middle of the country, the flight itself became the story. A peak of roughly 16,000 to 17,000 people simultaneously tracked the jet on Flight Radar 24, making it the #1 most tracked flight on the planet for nearly the entire trip. Knoxville Raceway put that live tracker on its own video board, so fans in the grandstands watched an airplane icon crawl across a map instead of watching a race. A Dirt Vision camera crew filmed Larson walking off the tarmac in Iowa, where a police escort was waiting to rush him to the track. He reportedly spent the flight filling out his post-race debrief form, the same paperwork every Cup Series driver completes. Told about the flight tracking number afterward in Victory Lane, his reaction was blunt: "It's kind of cool. That's a stat. But I figured somebody would be tracking Donald Trump, Taylor Swift, or something," Larson said. He arrived at Knoxville Raceway before the B-Main even took the green flag, missing hot laps entirely and not having turned a single lap in that sprint car since Thursday night. The championship feature finally went green just before 1 a.m., and the checkered flag fell at 1:41 a.m. Central, a 33-minute race. Larson started first and led all 50 laps, never relinquishing the point. Carson Macedo cleared Sheldon Haudenchild for second on the way, and Larson's biggest advantage over the field stretched to 4.798 seconds by lap 24. He lapped up to 12 cars in the first half of the race, including Rico Abreu, Tyler Courtney, and Corey Eliason. His fastest lap of the night was a 15.941 on lap 28, the only lap under 16 seconds run all race. The top 5 finished Larson, Haudenchild, Macedo, James McFadden, and Logan Schuchard. Haudenchild recorded his career-best Knoxville Nationals finish and his 7th straight top 10 in the event. "Kyle just kept getting farther and farther away," he said, adding, "I'm glad Kyle got to make it back. Honestly, if I want to win this race, I want to beat Kyle and the best there is. Macedo, at 46 years old, posted his own career-best Nationals result. I got right to second there and I was trying to do all I could to keep up with Kyle. He slowly pulled away, he said, calling the whole night extremely surreal. Larson summed up the range of emotions afterward. It's just wild how I'm here tonight. He credited the organization that made the trip physically possible. I wouldn't have any Knoxville Nationals championships without Hendrick Motorsports. A fourth Knoxville Nationals in a fashion like this is unbelievable. It feels like a little bit of a dream right now. He also had a message for the fans who booed him on Thursday. I hope all the people bitching about us running our preliminary night understand why this was the best-case scenario, Larson said, adding that this exact outcome was the whole reason his team entered the Nationals in the first place. He also praised Daniels directly. For someone who's never been behind the wheel of a race car, to be as good as he is as a crew chief is unreal. He can read the car better than I can feel it. The numbers stacked up fast. Larson now has 4 Knoxville Nationals titles, 2021, 2023, 2024, and 2026, all won in the closing laps of the race, tying him with Kenny Weld and Danny Lasowski for 4th all-time. Ahead of him sit Steve Kinzer with 12, Donnie Schatz with 11, and Doug Wolfgang with 5. He now has 178 career Knoxville Nationals laps led, moving him past Wolfgang's 152 into 3rd all-time, behind only Schatz's 339 and Kinzer's 301. It was also his 3rd flag-to-flag Nationals win, tying Wolfgang for 2nd most behind only Kinzer's 6, and his 3rd career Nationals pole, tying him with Mark Kinzer, Sammy Swindell, and Joe Saldana. He now has 16 career wins at Knoxville Raceway overall, and his 40th career World of Outlaws victory, making him the 22nd driver in history to reach that number. He's believed to be the only driver ever to win 4 features in a single Iowa Speed Week, Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Saturday, since 2020. 1 driver. 400 laps of Cup Series racing in Virginia. A 118-minute flight across the country. And 50 laps led on dirt in Iowa. All in a single night, a stretch of racing most competitors would need an entire season to experience, compressed into roughly 7 hours between a short track in Virginia and a dirt oval in Iowa. And the calendar isn't done with him. In 2027, the Knoxville Nationals falls on the exact same weekend as the Bristol Night Race, meaning Kyle Larson is about to stare down this exact impossible choice all over again. If you loved this story, hit that like button and subscribe to NASCAR Race News so you never miss the next wild night in this sport.